Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday night. I want to talk tonight about the loss of U.S. exceptionalism and also about how the world is losing confidence in the United States under Trump. It's not only the world, it's also us as Americans. Consumer sentiment is the lowest it's been since 1980. Expectations of inflation have risen in the most recent measuring from 2.6% when Trump first took office to 6.7%. So the fact that tariffs are not going to cause inflation is fooling no one. People have stopped traveling to the United States. I don't need to tell you that. You can go look on social media and see all the people saying they won't travel here because they're afraid of what's happening at the borders. They're afraid of what's happening in our country. And of course, as we've been discussing, the biggest threat for us is the U.S. is no longer viewed as a safe haven. And that has impacted, as we've talked about, the triple threat, which is our stock market, our bond market, the treasury bond market, and also the U.S. currency. And as we head into this week's trading, already on a Sunday night, futures are down for the stock market, and the U.S. currency continues to plunge. And it's contagion now. It's not only fear of what Trump will do and is doing to the global economy, it's also concern about instability in the U.S. with our democracy. And if you're looking in abroad and you're seeing the Supreme Court of the United States tell Trump to do something and he's willfully disregarding it, you really have to wonder about the stability of our country. So what happens then? Okay, just to recap really briefly what we've discussed in prior videos, when there's a loss of confidence, the U.S., for the first time since World War II, is no longer viewed as the safe haven, sort of the center spoke of the global economies. It costs us more to borrow because people want a risk premium to buy U.S. Treasury bonds, and it hurts our currency. It makes our currency weaker because they don't have the confidence in the U.S. economy. And at some point, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's what we're starting to see if you read the news this weekend. I'll give you an example, and this is something we studied in Econ 101 if you took that in college. That how do you start a recession? Well, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when sentiment starts to be reinforcing and then companies start to lay off. So for example, in the last few days, there's been announcements from Mac Trucks and Volvo. Both of them are letting off employees, 800 employees at Volvo in the US under expectations of the damage done by Trump's tariffs. And for Mac Truck, in the Lehigh Valley, they're letting go 250 to 350 employees. And so what happens with those employees? Let's trace it through. Once you get employed, you stop spending. Once you see your friends across the street get unemployed, you stop spending as well. And the thing that has fueled our economy and made American economy so strong has been consumers. We are the bedrock of the U.S. economy. So when this fear starts to perpetuate, and it already had started before the tariffs with Musk's Doge. And in the last reading we had from U.S. Challenger, 216,000 people were claiming unemployment because of being cut from federal government. So you have all these people now who, did some rush spending ahead of the tariff, some of them, but you can see how the sentiment and the expectations, starting to see firings, starting to see your friends get fired, starts to make Americans pull back. We add to that also other issues as well, such as tourism being down significantly because people don't want to travel here, and that impacts certain sectors. We have what's called the death cross in the U.S. market as we enter this week. And just what that is very briefly, the S&P 500, which is the most watched, it's 500 of the biggest stocks. There's a measure of how it's traded in the last 50 days versus the last 200 days. And when the 50 days goes below the trend for 200 days, that's called a death cross. And what that means is momentum is leaving the market and our stock market is there. So if you're in the market, you can expect turbulent times. There are stories now about people being more cautious about buying homes, buying cars. This is how it all starts. And I just want to, again, talk about what we've said, that Trump should not have this power. The tariffs are actually the power of Congress. And even though they're still on vacation for another week, they're not back in DC, your members of the Senate and your members of the your member of the House of Representatives should be hearing from you. There should be checks on power. Right now, basically, the decisions, again, is with one man. And as we've covered extensively here, this is not the man that should be making choices for the global economy. We are in a danger zone, friends, and we need to pull out. We started with Liberation Day. It's now 3 weeks old, right? We're on April 20th. It started April 2nd, almost 3 weeks. We had heard from Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, and others that it was just a matter of time, that they had 75 countries lining up to do deals with us. Well, what happened to those deals? We have zero. Let me calculate. So in addition to all of this, if you follow me on Substack, my Substack is the weekly list. I have the link in my bio. You can read more about other things that are happening this week with Trump and the setbacks he's facing. But we also have concern, and I've written about it at Substack, with Trump firing Powell and the impact that would have. I wrote a piece over the weekend on that. And we just have concern with, like, what is next? Who is in charge here? One person? Like, we have all these countries now. We're not going to have, we have stories of imports from China not leaving. You're going to start to feel in the coming weeks a major change in what life feels like here as we start, stop seeing products from China. Things get, more expensive coming from countries in Europe and from other markets that we buy in. Things are going to become less and less stable. It's sort of like we're in that point now where the glue is just kind of coming off. So I'll continue to write about it and talk about what I'm seeing. But just generally, the advice is you just have to stay the course, diversify until somebody, until greater good can be put in. And God forbid, Powell gets fired. That will just exacerbate all of it. But stay tight, listen to, read up on what's happening. Do not panic, but expect that things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. I hope you have a good week and you had a happy holiday. Thank you.